welcome to Retro Americana. I'm your host, Jeremy Scott. You know, it's November, unless you're watching this and it's a rerun. It's like March. So we're taping this in November, and you know, November is election time. Now we just had some elections just a while back. It wasn't one of those big time years like last year when we elected a new president, but that's normally when a lot of that stuff happens. And I love election season. It's always fun to, some people don't like it. I disagree. I love watching just the competitive crap that goes on between these guys, and it's just fun for me. So what I have today for you is a series of presidential commercials and promos from the 70s, 72 and 76 specifically. And what I'm going to show you first is Richard Nixon's 1972, or they're from 1972 when he ran for re-election. These are some of the promos and commercials that he put out. And you know, I think we all know about Nixon. We know about Watergate. We know that he was paranoid, that he was a control freak. And he was already starting to get mired in some of these corruption type deals that he was involved in, paying people off, all kinds of stuff. And so here these are from 1972. And when we come back, we're going to show some McGovern, who was his challenger in 1972, some of his stuff. So enjoy, and we'll be right back.
The McGovern Defense Plan. He would cut the Marines by 1/3, the Air Force by 1/3. He'd cut Navy personnel by 1/4. He would cut interceptor planes by 1/2, the Navy fleet by 1/2, and carriers from 16 to 6. Senator Hubert Humphrey had this to say about the McGovern proposal. It isn't just cutting into the fat. It isn't just cutting into manpower. It's cutting into the very security of this country. President Nixon doesn't believe we should play games with our national security. He believes in a strong America, to negotiate for peace from strength.
The 38th President of the United States is Richard Nixon. Most of us see him only as a public figure. In this film, we can glimpse the private man at work and in his relaxed moments. The man so few people know.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go away. Newt was asking earlier if I would play, and I said I had never done so yet in the White House, but it did occur to me as I looked at the magnificent program prepared for us that one number was missing. You see, this is his birthday. Now, Duke Ellington is ageless, but would you all stand and sing happy birthday to him, and please in the key of G.
We don't have any assurance that if we put federal money into that reform, that property taxes are going to go down in the localities.
Well, then we won't accept it.
But I want to just
No, what's the matter with these clowns? The whole purpose of this is to get property taxes down, not to increase the budgets for local officials to continue to raise property taxes.
That's what I thought you'd say.
And unless you put the heat on these local officials, they'll just take the money and pour it into all their pet projects and not get the projects.
That's what's happening.
It's not the way it's going to be.
Okay, good.
It's not the way it's going to be. on that thing we were discussing this morning, I wanted to be sure that you got off a telephone call, preferably a message, if necessary, to Connolly. Right. What did he think about the British action and so forth? And what did he think about the possibility of the European bloc? I suppose he went up the wall? No. The other thing, too, is he's got to think of the Latin Americans. If he cancels his trip because of this little blip, it could be a fairly big one on the international monetary thing, it'll be again, well, here the Americans only care about Europe and don't care about us. Tell him it would be a very grave mistake for him to cancel his trip or to postpone it to this point. He ought to go down there, and then if something else develops, we'll bring him back.
I express my appreciation to my Chinese voice, to Mrs. Chang. I listened to her translation. She got every word right.
Come on. Yeah, you touch it. Come on. It's bad.
我同时想借此机会为我在
Richard Nixon, a man of compassion, courage, and conscience. A man America needs now more than ever.
Okay, up next is McGovern. And there's some cool stuff with McGovern. He had some very up-and-coming people work on his campaign back then. Most notably, President Bill Clinton and his wife, Hillary, who's now our Secretary of State. I got to see Bill Clinton speak in Austin in 2003, I believe it was. And he talked about working on the McGovern campaign in Texas. He worked at the Texas headquarters there in Austin. And he talked about he had a lot of fun times there and really learned a lot about himself and realized that he just really liked being in politics. And I think what he probably really wanted to say was, I went to some of the best keggers Texas has ever seen. Serious. It was awesome to see former President Clinton speak and talk. He talked a little bit about the McGovern campaign. Now, obviously, McGovern ended up losing this election. But I got a couple of his presidential campaign ads. So check those out, and then we're going to go to commercial break, and then we're going to come back. And we also got James Townsend on the show. I forgot to mention that earlier. He's got some pretty cool stuff as usual. So enjoy.
This is about the government. This is about credibility. This is about electronics. This is about bugging. This is about spying. This is about thievery. This is about espionage. This is about lying. This is about payoffs. This is about contradiction.